Okay, there we go. So welcome to the December CEDS meeting, North Country CEDS meeting. I'm Angela Cleveland, in case I haven't met you yet, but I believe I've met everybody in this room and online. Yep. So hello. And we're very excited about our agenda for today, and it's a very full agenda, so we'll get started. But we do have two special guests in addition to Alana that I want to make sure just give quick overview, welcome, housekeeping before we get started. So we'll start with you.
Sure. Hi, I'm Michelle Bowden. I'm with Grafton Regional Development, and the Enterprise Center where we are sitting right now is one of the buildings of GRDC. This is one of our incubator spaces, more for like service type businesses versus we've got another one in Lebanon, Dartmouth Regional Technology Center. That's more for tech type businesses. So just wanted to welcome you to the Enterprise Center. Please help yourself outside. Sorry all you that can't. Hopefully you have your own coffee. But we've got coffee out here in Keurigs, and the water from the tap is good. There's mugs and water above the sink here, and then the bathrooms. Come on in. Bathrooms are right there in the hallway. There are two of them here. So. And ask me any questions if you need help with anything while you're here. Thanks for coming.
Awesome.
Hi.
Just
Hi. For those who don't know me, I may know some who are here online. I don't think I know too many here in this room. Joseph Perez, town planner here in Plymouth. Welcome to our beautiful downtown. I hope everybody had a good time getting here and enjoys your time here. If you need any recommendations, if you're looking for lunch spots afterwards, certainly happy to share those. I encourage you to spend some time on Main Street. If there's anything that you need, you're welcome to reach out to me. I encourage you to make that connection. And, I'm here as a resource in Plymouth. I'm over at Town Hall. So thanks for having me. Glad to be here and welcome to Plymouth.
Awesome. Great. So I wanted to introduce Alana. Alana Preuss is the founder and CEO of Recast City, which has been one of my favorite initiatives for many years now. As a former community planner, community and economic development planner in Amesbury, which was an industrial downtown, and had a lot of saw a lot of revitalization. And in the Merrimack Valley in Massachusetts, thinking about how to embrace our communities and think about how manufacturing can be a part of that. I really fell in love with the work that Alana is doing. So recently I was on a webinar with her about a champions program, or maybe I'm saying it wrong, sorry, Alana, that she's doing to develop a cohort of communities that want to really see small manufacturing be something that helps them revitalize their downtowns. And we do have some downtowns that I think would benefit from this. And since we have a renewed interest in manufacturing again through our CEDS, I thought this might be a great way to round out our year. And I know you'll be completely enamored by Alana, because I am. And but she offered to be on this webinar today, or on with us today. She is in Baltimore, Alana, or in
DC.
DC. So obviously can't be up here with us today, but I think this is a next second best. So, so with that, Alana, if you want us to do a round of introductions, or I'm going to let you take it from here, but let us know if you want to do that, and then we can do that quickly, or however you want to proceed.
That would be great to do a quick round of introductions.
Yeah, sure. So you know who's in the room. Great. So we'll start on this end.
Oh, great. Good morning. Richard Amore with USDA Rural Development.
Good morning, everybody. I've been mostly online with all of you in the last year or so. My name is Sarah Waring. I'm the state director for Vermont and New Hampshire for USDA Rural Development. And there are three of us here today in person because we're very excited to be getting back out on the road. And Alana, we've heard a lot about your work, so we're excited to be here for the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jason Otwoody with Woodsville Guarantee Savings Bank. I do commercial lending in the Upper Valley and in the Plymouth area.
I'm Ben Amston with the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation, where I'm the initiative lead for basic needs, grant making, and impact investing.
Good morning, Glenn Koppelman with North Country Council.
Morning, Vito Valentine. I work for the good people of the northern three counties of the state at the New Hampshire Department of Business and Economic Affairs, and known cousin to Mr. Chuck Henderson up there on the screen.
Fellow senator.
Yeah, right.
Miguel Morales with the U.S. Small Business Administration.
I'm Sarah Young Knox. I'm with the town of Albany.
Michelle Bowden, TRDC.
Joseph Perez, Plymouth Town Planner.
Brandy Thompson, the Community Programs Director for New Hampshire and Vermont USDA-RD.
And
I'm Taylor Roy. I'm an assistant planner at North Country Council.
awesome. All right, Alana, take it away. Oh, sorry, the
You
folks on
want
the phone.
the other people online?
There's many of them. So we'll start with Steve, and then you can choose the next person, Steve.
Good morning, everyone. Steve Fortier from New Hampshire Department of Business and Economic Affairs. Tracy.
Morning, everybody. Tracy Hutchins with the Upper Valley Business Alliance. Mike.
Good morning, everybody. Mike Morin, New Hampshire, Vermont Program Director for the Northern Forest Center. Chuck.
Chuck Henderson. I serve the people of the North Country on behalf of Senator Jean Shaheen. Stephanie.
Good morning, everyone. I serve the people of the North Country on behalf of Congresswoman Custer. Erin.
Hi, everyone. Erin Talcott. I'm the Development Associate for the Boys and Girls Club of the North Country, and I'll pass it to Jessica.
Jessica Sear, I'm the Town Manager in Lancaster, and I'll pass it to Robin.
Robin Irving, Land Use Coordinator for the town of Lancaster and the President of the Groveton Regional Economic Action Team, also known as GREAT.
It's a good acronym. Is that everybody?
Mike, yeah. Did Mike go? Yeah. Okay. I think that's everybody.
Great. So it's wonderful to be here with all of you today. And my name is Ilana Prus. I am the founder and CEO of Recast City. I'll tell you all about it along the way, but I just want to thank you for inviting me to join you today. I'm always excited to get to talk to community leaders, and I see already from the introductions that you guys are coming at this both from a community perspective and an economic development perspective, but also from thinking about all the different assets that can come to bear on your success. So we're going to have a conversation today. I'll talk for a little while, but really know that we have lots of time for Q&A at the end. So feel free to jot down a note, or if you're online, throw a question into the chat along the way so you don't forget it. I forget if I don't write it down quickly. So feel free to use that trick as well. So we're going to talk about today is this role of what I call small scale manufacturing in both strengthening our local economies and helping us create strong and vibrant downtowns. I want you to just imagine for a second an opportunity that is clear around increasing the number of good paying jobs in the community. What if we could do this? What if we could grow more family incomes to afford housing in our community, to invest in our community, to put down deep roots in our community? And what if we could attract amazing business owners and grow entrepreneurs from within our communities to diversify our economy so our local economy is not only sustainable, but resilient in the face of whatever winds are coming at us in the future? Well, small scale manufacturing is not the only answer, but it's really a huge part of the answer that we're missing so far. And that these businesses serve an enormous role in both fulfilling those kinds of outcomes and helping us create these thriving downtowns. We're seeing a big change in our downtowns, and I want to pull out a few of them, both positives and challenges. First, there's a really interesting survey that was done by Main Street America earlier this year. I think it was in the spring. And they surveyed Main Street managers about the businesses that are on their main streets. And they found that 1/3 of all storefronts on main streets are already product businesses. That means that this sector is a sleeping giant on our main streets and a key part of creating these thriving places. The other thing that they found in their analysis is that the majority of these product businesses on Main Street are owned by millennials and Gen Z individuals, which means when we're looking at issues of brain drain or opportunities for young families in our community, this might be one of the missing pieces that we need to look at. So small scale manufacturing, I always talk about as a hidden gem. In most communities, it's just under the surface and it's this hidden economic engine that's just churning away. Let me explain what I mean by small scale manufacturing. This business type is any business that creates a product that you can, it's a tangible product that you can replicate or package. My shorthand for it is hot sauce, handbags, or hardware. It is anything from advanced manufacturing to the artisans who are our holiday vendors. This is one example of small scale manufacturing. This is CO Ceramics. She has a 400 square foot store in a micro retail space. In that store, she can create her product and sell it in the storefront, like many other businesses having a storefront. She also is a vendor at the biggest markets in the region. She sells online and she sells wholesale. So out of this tiny footprint, she has at least 4 different revenue sources coming into her space. She also teaches classes. There's other revenue sources, but those are the 4 core ones. And that means that she can be very nimble as a business and have all of these different revenue sources coming in to make sure that she stays whole over time. We also have other businesses that are different kinds of small scale manufacturing. This is Woodhaven Custom Calls. They make turkey calls. They have a production only space about a block off of a main street in a small town in Alabama. During the pandemic, when everything was closed and lots of people were out traveling because outdoor entertainment, outdoor activities, recreation were really one of the only safe things to do, people started showing up at their production space because they wanted to see where their turkey calls were made. And this business that employs 25 people from the community realized that they could be a draw. They could be an amenity if they created a small storefront in the front of their production space with a glass window into their area so that people could stop in, buy a turkey call, and stop in the main street. These are the kinds of things we're seeing in small scale manufacturing. We're also seeing shared spaces. So you might be familiar with commercial shared kitchens, where businesses can come in and pay for a certain number of hours each month to do their production. Because they're in a commercial health inspected space, it means that they can sell their product into a supermarket or a store versus just being a vendor at a farmer's market. It gives them expansion opportunities. And we're seeing these pop up all over the country as well. It's just one kind of shared space, but it's another example of where we're seeing small scale manufacturing grow. But we are facing a lot of challenges in our communities. We know that too many people and places have been left behind in our economy. They've been excluded, they've been underserved. There are a lot of challenges that we're facing. The loss of jobs in many communities, the only availability of low-wage jobs in many communities, lots of vacant storefronts, neighborhood centers that really have been emptied out, and this brain drain, right? Our youth leaving our communities and not coming back. And the question we have to face is, how do we start addressing these challenges? In many communities, the cost of renovating a space that's been vacant for a long time is much, much higher than any lease that people can get out of the space. So the project doesn't pencil anymore as a real estate project. We also know that in a lot of small towns, there are people sitting on properties, leaving them vacant because they're taking it as a tax loss on revenue they're making somewhere else. Additionally, in newer products, in newer development, folks are leaving ground floors vacant because if they change the pricing on that ground floor, it's going to devalue their underwriting. All of their loans from the banks are based on getting a certain revenue out of that ground floor. And if instead of saying it's $20 a square foot, they all of a sudden say it's $10 a square foot, their whole underwriting goes underwater. And then in a lot of smaller cities, we're seeing guaranteed leases that are leaving spaces vacant. A national chain comes in, is there for 3 or 4 years, is guaranteed a lease for 10 years. So the property owner is still getting revenue off of it. But by shuttering their doors and guaranteeing that lease, they're not allowing any competitor into that space, even though this is having a massive impact on the businesses and the economy, a massive negative impact on the businesses and economy around it. On top of that, we're seeing this mismatch of real estate needs. Small businesses today are needing smaller footprints, smaller amount of square footage than what businesses in the past have needed. And we're not catching up yet in matching that need. On top of that, we have cities that are facing different kinds of very specific challenges. Business communities that are really familiar or used to a boom and bust cycle, lots of great energy going into a community for a set of years, and then the economy emptying out. And we want to create this sustainable, consistent economy. We want to break out of the boom and bust cycle. On top of that, we also have communities that are totally dependent on the tourist economy. These areas really struggled during the pandemic. And also one of the challenges we see in the tourist towns is that the economy is really separated. We have a few people who are making a lot of money and a lot of people who are making very little money. And this doesn't allow people to create lots of good paying jobs. It doesn't necessarily support a lot of local entrepreneurship. And there's a lot of challenges to being very dependent on any one part of our economy. So what do we do about it? And this is what we're going to talk about today. How do we help our businesses thrive, our small scale manufacturing businesses thrive, and thereby how are we helping our downtowns thrive and creating that strong local economy? So this is what I do. I work with communities all over the country who recognize that something about product businesses, something about small scale manufacturing is right for them. And they want to understand, and not only understand, and they want to do something about it in regards to their local economy or their downtown. I love it so much. I even wrote a book about it 3 years ago called Recast Your City, How to Save Your Downtown with Small Scale Manufacturing. It's a DIY book. But on top of the book, we work with communities all over the country to figure out how small scale manufacturing that's already there in their community can serve the community in a way to grow its economy, to help those business owners and create the great places that we know can be there. If you're interested in the book, I can send Angela the link later, but you're welcome to go to recastyourcity.com and you can download the first chapter of the book for free. It comes with worksheets. There's lots of materials behind it because I want people to understand not only the opportunity, but also how to get there. A little bit more about me. I always forget to talk about me, so this slide reminds me. When I was in high school, my mother sewed me this dress on the left. I don't know if your screen is flipped, but it was a bright electric blue dress, and she sewed, she knitted, she taught us all how to hang blinds and use drills and tools. She was a maker before anybody was talking about makers. And on the other side, I had an amazing opportunity to give a TEDx talk years ago on the economic power of great places. I love teaching my kids how to use all the tools. They are my other great project in the world, although now they're out of the house, so I'm not sure they're called my project anymore. But I want to tell you a little about why I do this. And my why is really based on, I believe that this business type is really this missing piece of having amazing places and strong economies, because they are everywhere, because the barrier to entry is low when we support them effectively. You don't have to have a college or advanced degree. You don't have to leave your hometown. You can bring dollars into your community. You can fill storefronts. You can create great paying jobs. These businesses generally are paying 50 to 100% more than service or retail jobs. So these businesses are really this key component that we've never or rarely engaged on in our community. And this is why we do this work. This is why I do this work. I want to help create the thriving businesses. I want to help create the downtowns that we love, these strong, resilient local economies. And yours why might be different, or it might be some combination of these as well. But it's an exciting opportunity to me to figure out how we pull all of these things together and act on it in a very short amount of time. And acting on it is a key part of this. I worked for years at the federal and national nonprofit level. And when I created Recast City 10 years ago, a big priority of mine was to make sure that everybody can implement this work. And that's a huge part of what we focus on. So how do we do it? I believe that there's a different way we have to go about doing our local economic development. We need to invest in the people who live there. And you guys might be doing this already, but not everybody is. We need to invest in that place, the physical place with those people. We need to create a new structure to support and scale that investment. And we need to think long term, have big important projects, but we need to act now. We need to figure out what are those short-term actions that help us build towards those big long-term projects. When we do this with small-scale manufacturing businesses, we're creating an amazing number of assets. They help us invest in businesses that allow more people to build their household wealth. We can create more inclusive opportunities to bring wealth into the community, right? When they sell online, they're quite literally bringing dollars into that community. They fill storefronts, as I said, and allow people to both sell in person and online. This is one of my favorite stories. She is a soap maker. Off to the side of the picture, she had this huge cauldron. When it was slow in the stores, she could, or before or after opening hours, she could create her soaps, pour it in the mold, and then also sell out of the same space. When we have production and retail in the same space, it's not only efficient and effective for the business owner, but it's this cool factor for people who are walking by or stopping in to see something being made. And it really becomes a magnet and helps build up foot traffic. When we have a chance to fill these storefronts, we can also break out of these cycles of loss and exclusion, grow property values. This is a great coffee shop. They moved into a block with a lot of vacancies, and they have there's a residential area right behind it, but it's it has you can see 1 or 2 floor buildings here. And they had a coffee shop, they have a coffee shop up front, and then they do their coffee roasting in the back. And what they did is that the coffee roasting out back, in the back of the space, was their wholesale distribution for the region. So they're doing a wholesale distribution, which is what's keeping them resilient in the short term while they're building up the foot traffic for the storefront in the front, because there was no foot traffic on this block when they moved in. And lo and behold, they built up great foot traffic because a lot of people there. And over the next short number of years, all of the storefronts on that block got filled in. We also can attract more business owners who want to be a part of what you're building. When you start taking care of this business sector, when you're known for taking care of your small scale manufacturers, not only do you grow more of these businesses from within your own community, but you're also attracting them from other parts of the region. Knoxville, Tennessee is a great example of this. They've been creating the Maker City program for 8-9 years at this point, I think, maybe 10. And they are known up and down the East Coast as a place actually to move to as a small scale manufacturing business owner, to be part of what they're building. So how do we get there? And what do we do? Well, a big part of how we help people get there, and this is what Angela was referring to at the beginning, is our Recast Leaders program. We work with communities all over the country to bring them together and help them understand, what are your goals around this? Who are your small scale manufacturers? How do you find them? How do you understand their needs? And then how do you start implementing initiatives to benefit them all within 10 months? And we have an open call for applications right now for our National Recast Leaders cohort. We accept 5 or 6 communities from across the country into our national cohort each year. And each community builds a team so that you're working with other people in your community to make it happen. The program really focuses on clear, small steps you can achieve month over month so that you can make this happen and learn how to do this yourself. You get direct coaching and mentorship throughout the entire 10 months. And you get access to national experts who've done those projects before, who've created those programs, who've launched initiatives so that you can get to implementation as fast as possible. We want you to be able to de-risk the investment because you've done your homework and you know what people need, and jump to implementation as quickly as possible because you can learn as much as everything that you can from people who have done that before and copy 80% of it, customize 20% of it, and get on the road with it. You're doing it with peers because it really is about peer leadership. Every community has something to teach and something to learn. And also that group accountability is really amazing. And it's all laid out in bite-sized pieces to achieve your individual community goals. We've pulled best practices from tech startups, from grassroots organizing, from change management, and the theories behind all of that so that it's all getting you into implementation along the way. Like I said, this is about one cohort with 5 or 6 communities, 25 local leaders from across the country, and then hundreds of businesses that are engaged all over a 10-month period so that you can get to implementation already. It is a cohort-based model because we know that when we bring people together People often learn better, they stick to the work together, and they can not only have colleagues across the country who they can work with on this, but your shared experiences are incredibly valuable. And in these group sessions, when all 5 or 6 communities come together every other week, we're really learning all of these details together and can support each other through the implementation of the tailored projects that you pick for your community. I always say there's 100 different things I can share with you that different communities have done for small scale manufacturing under real estate, business development, and capital investment and PR. But which 3 are most important for your community? Well, that's what we need to find out. We've worked with partners all over the country to do this, and I'm happy to talk to you about it if you're interested. People who have graduated from Recast Leaders have passed zoning changes, launched commercial shared kitchens, and done all sorts of different things specific to the needs of their small scale manufacturing businesses so that folks can thrive in that community with deep roots immediately. In Columbia, Missouri, they changed their zoning. They launched a commercial shared kitchen. They actually launched their second commercial shared kitchen because they outgrew the first one so quickly. They have a maker's market, and they also have some amazing branding if you go to the Loop, which is the improvement district there. In San Luis, Colorado, this is a very small town of about 600 people. They launched a shared retail space in their city visitor center so they could give people of home-based businesses an opportunity to have an expanded exposure to visitors coming through. This was really key for them because the home-based businesses weren't ready to go into their downtown, and they had significant vacancies in their downtown because of distant property owners, and it was going to take them longer to solve that problem. But they wanted to help these businesses grow in the business pipeline along the way. In Atlanta, they also recognized that there was a huge barrier between home-based businesses who were ready to launch in storefronts, but they lacked the knowledge of how to launch successfully in storefronts. We've all seen examples. Folks move into a storefront, they don't really know what they're doing, they're very passionate about it, and then they close within a year. Well, we don't want that to happen. So they created a retail readiness training program so that home-based businesses could learn the specific skills and understand their own pricing and distribution and business plan to be ready and successful in a storefront as well. So Recast Leaders 2025 applications are open right now, but this is really about the learning and the doing in a 10-month period. So how do we get started? With or without Recast Leaders, how do we get started? Well, it's always to me about partnerships and connectors. Who knows the producers in your community, who's connected to different parts of your community that may not already be at the table. We spend a lot of time working on that. We look at barriers. Are there barriers in zoning and permitting? Do the commercial buildings in your community allow artisan manufacturing? Are there technical policy issues we need to change? How do we tell the story of these businesses in our community? They're incredibly exciting. People love hearing about individuals in the community. Let's tell their story effectively and in an exciting way. Is it profiles that are in the local social media? Is there a local newspaper or regional publication that can feature profiles of them? How do we make sure people know about them? And then how do we also bring them together? There's a lot that small scale manufacturers can learn from each other. And there's a lot we can learn once we get them together and say, well, what's most important to you in the coming year to help you grow, and then serve their needs that way. And then how do we help them fill storefronts? Is it a gap in knowledge? Is it about availability of space? Is it the pricing of space or the quality of space? Or is it about sharing space? We want to know specifically in detail what those barriers are so we can help address them. But ultimately, it's about creating places that are just bursting at the seams with business owners who are proud of what they're creating and employees who are just thriving because of the opportunities they're being given, and places where community can come together and understand the value and the just being proud of what's being created in their community. So with that, I will close, and I'm happy to take any questions that you have. I'm going to stop sharing the screen. Yes.
I have a question. Can you say a little bit about examples of synthesis with the makerspace model that we've seen in some communities around here? I assume the retail piece is the kind of one sort of difference between this or an opportunity for overlap, but have you seen any other kinds of integration or synthesis with existing makerspaces in a community?
So a makerspace is an amazing thing. It's an amazing asset. It is a different thing. So I'm going to define as I go. A makerspace in general is a space with access to tools that are open to the public to get a membership or take a class. Makerspaces are generally focused on education. Some makerspaces are large enough that they also have space for small businesses to have a desk or to use their tools with more hours in the day. It really depends on the size of the makerspace. And some makerspaces also have entrepreneurship programs that they've launched and are really focused on that business growth. So the answer is it depends. The makerspaces can be a piece of the solution. They can really look at their role both in providing training and being a convening space. They can also, depending on how much space they have, can be that home base for some of these businesses. At minimum, they're a great partner. So when I talked about partners and connectors, the makerspaces often, whoever runs that space, they're often in the know about who is launching a business or growing a business in the community. So it's a yes, maybe kind of answer. Other question?
Do you work with the Small Business Administration at all?
So I have not worked with the Small Business Administration. We do work with the Economic Development Administration. I'd be happy to work with the Small Business Administration. We often at the local level recommend folks reach out to their SBDC, their Small Business Development Center, to get resources. But when we work with a community, part of what we have folks do is really do a scan of who are those connectors, who are those partners who should be a part of the conversation. And we find that oftentimes people have never talked to the SBA folks in their area. They've never talked to their SBDC. And so part of what we're working to do is make sure they have whoever is part of that asset base, we want them at that table.
So beside the SBDC, you have SCORE and the Center for Women in Enterprise. That's another,
right.
The other two, then you have the Veterans Business Outreach Center that you can utilize. So you have 4 groups there. I work with a lot of the town economic development to help their business community to get the word out there that we could actually help them, whether they're thinking about it, starting or to expand. So it's a lot of technical assistance that we supply to the small business communities.
Yeah, and that's an essential partnership to have in place. What we find in a lot of communities, once we're out there interviewing the small scale manufacturers directly, the business owners directly, is that they don't know about the resources that are available. And so then it becomes a PR and outreach question. Who's doing the outreach? How is it happening? How are we getting the word out? Is the need mostly for one-on-one support like SCORE or SBDC or what many of these programs do? Is it would be more beneficial to have a cohort program? Do the people in the community who are providing that assistance understand the specific needs of product businesses, or is that a piece we need to add into what's already going on? So we don't provide that training. I can always refer folks to folks who do those trainings, but a lot of it is trying to figure out what's already working really well that we can build on, and what are the gaps that we need to address, the most urgent gaps, so that these businesses get the support they need, and the real estate solution in terms of downtown or commercial corridor or wherever they need to locate can be a part of the solution set.
So are you mainly working with folks before they have their space? Or
so we are mostly working with community leaders, economic development teams, Main Street organizations, downtowns, sometimes regional entities, who want small scale manufacturing to be a part of what they're doing in the downtown or the local economic strategy. And we're helping them figure out what that is, who that is, and how to do it. And so sometimes the answer is a space, and sometimes the answer is a business development program or a zoning change. We work with the community to figure out what's most urgent and what's most feasible in the short term versus the long term.
You have resources on zoning, like, I mean, so at least in New Hampshire, there's a lot of, it's local control, like that's just a huge deal, which is great at one level. But it's also ends up hampering things because you have, zoning, and so when you say small scale manufacturing sounds wonderful, but for a lot of people it's scary. And then it's like, I mean, I think of two examples off the top of my head, like a local, co-op, grocery store. They wanted to do manufacturing sort of to food prep, and the store's closing. It's not profitable, and it's going to just close because, the town wouldn't approve, the change to allow them to do that. They needed a variance, and they just wouldn't do it. Another was like a small brewery, and he wanted to do sort of both. And again, I think that was just more of a miscommunication. But do you like have resources on the zoning front that address some of that?
Yes. Yes, and a lot of small towns and cities are really missing out on these economic opportunities for exactly that reason, because their policies and permitting are not in place to support where the market has gone and where it's going. All of these cool factor businesses, right, like the brewery or in-house production, which really are essential for these business models and for just creating energy in communities. I hear time and time again how communities are missing out on that opportunity because their zoning and permitting is in place. We have a lot of resources. I worked with Fairfax County, Virginia, to add artisan manufacturing to their zoning code and look at how to change their permitting process to make sure that it could go through as well, right? It's not just one, we have to look at both. You can change the code, but then you have to make sure that people who are looking at the permitting understand how to get it through. So if that's the big barrier in a community, we have lots of resources on that too.
And I love that your program is bringing in the partners that need to be at the table to help remove kind of the scariness around manufacturing. It's cleaner, it's greener, it's more efficient. But we still go back to, pipes with, smoke coming out of them and loud noises, where most of these things are either they're in a very limited quantity or it's not at all because machinery or processes have cleaned themselves up. And so, talking to fire chiefs and having them at the table, like folks who may actually be the person that's not putting a damper on it, but could actually be an obstacle, and not by their own means, but just because of their own training. And so it's making that, you just removed us.
Right. And
so it's more about, there you go. It's more about, figuring out how to use new language to talk about something that's, is a benefit.
Absolutely. And, these businesses are modern manufacturing. They're clean, they're great neighbors. They help bring people out to see the cool factor of what they're doing. And so we want to proactively figure out how to do it. One of the members of our cohort this past year is Elgin, Illinois. It's a pretty big city in Illinois, although I didn't know of it before they joined our cohort. And they just changed all of the zoning for their downtown to allow artisan manufacturing. I think they picked a different name. But they step by step educated the members of their planning commission and their city council to get that approved, and had those one-on-one conversations to say, this is who are already the small scale manufacturers in our community. And they could have that conversation because they had interviewed all of these small scale manufacturers as part of our program, and really connect the dots for folks and daylight this business sector that is already there, that's already churning. And figure out how to make it now work with permitting to make it easier for those people to actually use the zoning, where before, like many of you know, they had to get a variance, and that's just time, which is money, and it's a barrier to businesses. We want businesses in our community. We have to really smooth this process for folks, because we are oftentimes right now going to get people who've never been in a space before, or they haven't been in a space in our community. So we want to make this user friendly. We want to make this a language and an access point that you don't have to hire the high cost engineer or architect to be able to do it. So we need to think about all these different steps.
Plymouth, do you have any businesses that embrace the small scale and the retail?
We have a couple of businesses that are more, I would call them long-standing businesses in town. I wouldn't say there's a proliferation of recent ones, but we do have Plymouth Soap Works, which makes soap and sells soap. We do have some small scale manufacturing like things downtown. For the most part, a lot of it, you'd have to assess each one. Some of it's probably in some grandfathered industrial space that we have downtown. Some of its zoning is probably somewhere in between the two extremes that you mentioned on this, and like probably a lot of towns hasn't, in New Hampshire, we get one shot a year to change our zoning, and that's voted upon at town meeting. It's, in a small town up here, it's a little bit, there's a little bit of an additional step there as opposed to sort of some of the city council cities or town council towns might have a bit of a easier time getting the word out to those folks who are ultimately making the decision. But I think we have a couple of things in town that really do bring some great life to Main Street. The Soap Works is one that comes to mind. We have Cafe Monte Alto, which is a coffee roaster, that supplies other local coffee businesses and has its own storefront. We have a small scale manufacturer of like lawn games, sort of underground space that used to be a wholesale feed store way back in the day. So there are a few, but I would say we're probably not at 0 or 100, somewhere in between.
You've got a good, you're not that vacant on, on Main Street either. So I was just curious.
Yeah.
Fun.
Hi, Ilana. I'm just curious. A lot of your presentation, in my mind, sort of focused on communities that had sort of a core downtown area. In New Hampshire, many of our towns really don't have an urban center, if you will. And they're very rural and they're very spread out. And do you have any ideas or comments about how one would approach and use your techniques in a community that does not have a formal downtown kind of a setting?
Absolutely. I think the question is, is there an area of the community where we want people to come together, be it a formal block or not? Is there even one building, I'm going to give you an example in just a second, where it really could feel like a place that the community comes together? There's this great project that I can claim no credit for, but I'm a huge champion for, in a town called York, Alabama, where it's actually an art center that they have in the very, very rural town of 2,500 people. I looked at Google Streets, and it's the block that this art center is on has, there's maybe 2 or 3 buildings other than this on the block. It's not like it's a downtown that looks like a historic Main Street. But this art center is there, and they're doing training for entrepreneurs. They're doing pop-ups for small scale manufacturing. And so their focus, because of the dynamic there, is less about filling storefronts and more about helping people in the community raise their incomes by being more successful at small scale manufacturing. So the thing that I find very special about our method is that it is completely dependent on the goals that that community sets out for itself. So if the goal is about filling storefronts, then that's what's going to be about. If the goal is about, well, we want to bring people together, but it's really about focusing on wherever people's businesses are today and how to help those scale, revenue, staff, whatever you want, then we're going to focus on that, because we can get at this in a whole bunch of different ways. So yes, we do it that way as well. My background's in city planning, so I always think of things from a visual, place-based perspective, but at whatever scale we need.
Great, thanks.
Absolutely.
Any other questions or thoughts on communities that we could approach? I've talked to Berlin about this, by the way. So unfortunately, Pam couldn't make it today due to a grant application or right to know or something happening. That's the deadline tomorrow. But that was one of the first places I thought of. And then Colebrook as well. But open to suggestions, that doesn't necessarily mean today, but at least recommending this approach. I know that both of them are, have looked at other ways to revitalize their downtowns, so.
Alana, what's the deadline for your application round if a community in New Hampshire wanted to participate?
We're extending it into January. So right now it'll be at the end of January.
Okay.
I feel like the last 2 months have been chaos in a lot of communities. So I was like, we're just going to push it into January this year, which is fine. And I'm happy to set up one-on-one times with anybody who's interested in learning more of the details or asking any specific questions about it. And I'll make sure Angela has that information for you.
Alana, have you done any work in kind of northern New England, New Hampshire, Vermont, or the North Country?
I've done work in Vermont, but that was on small business lending. That's a whole nother program we run with our cohorts. And we've done work with Lowell, Massachusetts. You might be stumping me. We've been in 44 states. So the odds are we've done something, but I can't really think off the top. I don't think we've had a cohort member from New Hampshire yet.
Time to change that.
Great.
This is why
I would love that.
I wanted to do this today, but I do think, and I have the book as well, if anyone's interested, would like to read the whole thing, but at any rate.
So I have one more question. And sorry if you already went over this, but when you say like the community that is, becomes part of the cohort, who is that? Is that, like a couple of towns, do come to mind for me in Grafton County, Lisbon and Bath.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to think of like, who would be the entity that puts forward the effort. Lisbon, for example, has a Main Street committee. I don't know if Bath has anything like that, but yeah, so.
It's a great question. So we're generally looking at an application from somebody who wants to lead the project. It can be from the jurisdiction. It can be from a partner organization like a Main Street. We've had everything from mayors to economic development directors to Main Street leads to downtown authorities to developers. I mean, we've had teams led by all sorts of different people who are focused on the community, its economic development, and really believe in what's possible. Those are the most important criteria. And one of the other important parts is that you have some lever of implementation. Every community builds a team of 3 or 4 people. And I always say you want the 3 or 4 people to round out who can get the work done, because part of the work is reaching out to local business owners, scheduling time with them, bringing people together, talking with them, interviewing them, and folks who have these levers of implementation. Because at the end of the day, the way I think I didn't even have this slide up, the program is the first third is a sort of a training and information gathering step. The second step is outreach and interviews within the community. And the third step is implementation. And we have a whole third of the program we're supporting each community to start its implementation, because I learned over the years is that getting that engine of implementation started on new initiatives is really an enormous barrier. So if we got to an action plan and just said, here are the 3 things you should go do, and ran away, it's not that effective. And that's what a lot of consultants do. They give you a plan and then they leave. And so what we do with the cohort is we actually flip the story. We work on an action plan with each different community who's part of the cohort. And then we still have another 3 months to work together where we're supporting you starting your implementation of those projects. So we're bringing in the experts, then we're introducing you to people. If you need to figure out the financing behind something, we'll make whoever's in my network becomes at your disposal as well. So we want to make sure, you asked about the team, we want to make sure that the members of the team are folks who have some budgetary control, some decision-making control, can really get their arms around leading and supporting the implementation.
What's the time commitment?
The program, the cohort itself is 10 months. And there's one fee for the entirety of the 10 months for the entire team. And the cohort meets every other week for an hour to an hour and a half. So on a general month, we're going to recommend that you on the off weeks, on the weeks you're not meeting with me because I run every cohort conversation, you're meeting with your team to get that work done. We give bite-sized work between every session. So it's generally going to be about 4 hours a month for the team. In that middle section of the program, there's 2 or 3 months where we're helping you go out and do interviews and small group meetings. Over those 3 months, it will be more hours. It's more over those 3 months, it's more like 30 hours or 40 hours because it's about doing interviews with small business owners, with property owners, if that's part of your plan, or with people who are part of your asset base to support small businesses. That's an important question.
Just one more question for me. Do you have any success incorporating, I'm asking this because the particular group I'm thinking of in many respects, doesn't have the ability to do the implementation piece. But they have a lot of contact and a lot of grit in a lot of communities, and that's Chambers of Commerce.
Chambers of Commerce are fantastic partners, right? They might be somebody that you want as part of your team. And it really depends on the chamber. I've worked in communities where the chamber doesn't want anything to do with small business, unfortunately. And I've worked in communities where the Chamber of Commerce is gold and just a key core partner. So one of our cohort members this past year, the regional chamber actually helped launch this new organization, this new community development corporation that was the lead on the cohort, but the chamber was a key partner in it. And so they were part of that team of 3 or 4, and they were phenomenal at supporting implementation. And it was really that partnership that was essential.
I have one question, Alana. Thanks so much for the presentation. I'm really curious. So, we represent like rural areas, right? And one of the most challenging pieces for anyone who has those levers of authority that you were talking about is the financing mechanism to be able to create the incentives that draw these small businesses or that allow them to compete in your town versus another larger town, right? So I'm wondering if, and around the table, you've got philanthropy, right? You've got some investors. I'm wondering if you could speak to how often the changes are related to a municipal financing incentive like a TIF, right? Versus a non-traditional financing partner coming in to support some effort like workforce development or grants to the business incubator, or whether it's SBA's dollars, rural development's dollars, which is grant funding to do small business development. How often are you finding it's federal or state support in the incentive, financing incentives versus non-traditional other employers or philanthropy?
It's a great question. There's 2 pieces of it. One is that the first or the most urgent challenge isn't always financing. In some communities, when we've done this work, the first or the most urgent challenge was actually training specifically for product businesses so that they would be a stronger business model and be able to scale. And so getting the house in order, getting that foundation really set was the most urgent thing. Capital, in fact.
I guess what I'm saying is even that takes money.
Yes, it does. And so financing programs like that has come everywhere from the jurisdiction from philanthropy. Folks have definitely applied for and received federal and state grants. We've gotten CDFIs involved, revolving loan fund recipients from EDA. So the answer is yes. The method that we really use is who is already there and interested. Let's get them fully engaged and make sure that that core group of champions is really strong to figure out what we need to go after. Our partners, the cohort members from Columbia, Missouri, who created the commercial kitchen, she also partnered, she's an improvement district. I think she's the only improvement district director I know that's launched her own commercial kitchen for her area. So she created a whole new thing. But she also partnered with the community college that she had been in at the time. She was in the same building as them. They wanted to create a maker space, but she wanted to open it to the community. So they went after a federal grant to get some dollars to support that makerspace so that they could afford to make it bigger and open it to the community as well, and not just the community college members. So people go after it in all sorts of different ways. Atlanta, Georgia, I know it's a really big city. It was the downtown improvement district. They had their own discretionary funding that they put behind their training program. So the answer is it depends. It's a yes and answer. We use anything we can figure out how to get our hands on.
Good.
But I will say on top of the finance question that communities that do have significant amount of vacant buildings, that do have that historic downtown or that traditional downtown, that have significant vacant buildings, they really struggle to figure out how to pull together the funding to get control over those properties and to figure out how to finance them, because the math doesn't actually work. And so it does need grant support to get those buildings back into use. One of the stats I didn't throw at you before is that when we have a vacant property, it actually suppresses property values around it by 20%. And so that vacant building is really like putting a municipal dump in the middle of the city in terms of its impact on everything else. So we need to very proactively figure out how to get those buildings back into operation and use.
Thank you.
I'm curious, so a lot of this talk, and as it should be, has to do with the traditional village center, revitalizing Main Street downtown. I'm curious if you've seen any movement on sort of the flip side of that, or maybe there's a barrier to this or a reason it wouldn't work, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. A lot of declining, let's call them underutilized commercial corridors that might be 20 to 40 years old at this point have some substantial vacancy and maybe sort of spec plazas that were built at that time. And there's certainly, anecdotally, I hear that really those aren't all that appealing for, say, a major national chain because they don't meet that chain specs. They don't meet, whatever. They want site control for whatever reason. These plazas don't work for some of the new major players that you might want to fill them. So there's a lot of thought about, right, how do you reposition these corridors to make them somewhere that you don't just sort of drive through and look at this sort of vacant storefront, but make them maybe a little bit more of a destination. Is there it sounds like these businesses might be able to fit into a space that, a major, say, retailer or something like that wouldn't necessarily be able to utilize, but if it's a sort of flexible, garage to storefront jump, maybe you can make some of those older spaces work and couple it with other types of improvements. I'm curious if you're
absolutely. We've worked in communities where the downtown is already full. It's at capacity and it's high priced. And so it's in fact not a great fit for what we want to do. And in that case, we've really encouraged the communities to figure out, well, where is this needed? Is there a commercial corridor near a population that really hasn't benefited from the downtown? Is there an area that really needs the investment? And can we look at that use? And that's exactly what we do, is we ask those same questions. What's there? What's available? Do we have a friendly property owner who actually wants to work with us on this? That's going to be key. And then how do we help understand what is going on with this business sector, understand where it fits and where it doesn't fit and what gaps we need to fill. So every community gets to pick the way that they want to do this, their goals and the geography that they want to focus on. My bias is downtowns because that's where my passion lies, but the method works on whatever geography you want to focus on.
Any other questions online? I just wanted to check with folks. Lancaster, thinking there's a community. Let's put you on the spot. Chuck, Stephanie, anybody? Or Tracy, any businesses or communities that you work with? Nope. All right. Any other questions in the room before we thank Alana for this awesome presentation? And I'll
My
make sure
pleasure.
I do a follow-up email with her contact information and the slides if those are available, Alana.
They're available. They're not so useful without me talking over them, but they're available.
Yeah, I know, right? Or maybe just the slide with your QR
They're pretty
code.
pictures. Yes, I'm happy to send you the link for the book. And please reach out directly if you have any other questions or want to talk about the application specifically.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you
This was
so much,
great.
Angela.
Happy
Well, everybody.
holidays.
Thank you.
You
See you
too.
soon.
Bye.
All right. Anybody need to take a quick break or have a lunch that you want to pull out? I know I didn't bring mine because I'll be talking and it'll be hard to do that. So we're going to switch gears to approval of the minutes while we have everyone here, and then we'll go into some CEDS accomplishments and think about what we want to do for 2025. So the minutes were sent out with the agenda last week, I believe, and they're up here as well. Sorry. But I'll give you a quick second to look over that in case there are any changes. Thank you. Oh, and while after we're done with this, while we're going through the presentation, feel free to make sure your phones are connected to the internet. And we have a slide here for that. We are doing a little exercise, a voting exercise with your phones. Hopefully everybody has their phone with them. If not, you can have my phone. I'll lend my phone to someone for this, but in the meantime, any changes in the minutes? No? Then I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from October 24th.
I'll make that motion.
All right, so motioned by Michelle. Is there a second? All right, Jason seconds. All right, any other discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes from October 24th CEDS meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Any abstentions? All right, one abstention. Thank you. All right, so we will move on to the presentation then. So everybody okay with us moving past the screen?
The Wi-Fi is also written right behind.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure. Well, it doesn't say Enterprise Guest Center, so I just wanted to make sure people saw that because it didn't pop up on mine. I had to scroll down. Maybe I just had a weird connection.
Well, everybody, all businesses
That's the other
have
all
their
competing.
own, have their own thing, so yeah.
All right, so today we are all about reflecting, thinking about next year, and then looking at some priority projects that were submitted. So first we'll go through what we've accomplished, and I feel like it's been a pretty big year. I'm not going to list all of these, but I do appreciate and want to recognize Taylor's efforts in our webinar series this year. We really were able to expand and first of all, reflect on all the things that you told us were important: brain drain and, our aging workforce and, housing, which is really stymieing our ability to bring businesses in, or to actually, I should say, businesses expand and or come in because employees are not up here. They can't afford to be here, and it's not going to get better, unfortunately. So we're hoping that we can, try to address that in another way. So thanks to you for all your efforts in organizing those and our speakers. We did make a really big update, in my opinion, to the CEDS, and thanks to Bino and others who had brought to our attention that it was important to really think about manufacturing, which is why we ended the year with that today, and the role that it plays in our economy still, especially in several of our counties where it is one of the top 5 industries. So thank you, Bino, for that. And we did get actually EDA never really said yes or no, but it has been submitted to EDA. The official CEDS update is on the website now. So I think you all received that in your email on Friday. So please feel free to use that because it does have the additional goals, goal and strategies that were added as well. So we are now participating in a CEDS peer exchange group with NATO, which is the National Association of Development Organizations. They have started a nationwide CEDS peer exchange group, and then they are breaking us into smaller cohorts. I know you're using that term again, but it's, I guess, a favorite one. It's kind of like pivot. But NATO is working with EDA closely, but EDA is not on the calls, but on behalf of them, they are getting probably a small stipend, probably, I don't know, to manage these little cohorts so that we can all work together and ask questions. So it's other regional planning agencies, for the most part, that are getting on calls, and they're all economic development districts as well. To talk through CEDS, committee structure, I mean, really anything that's soup du jour. So there are actually two of us in New Hampshire, us and the REDC, which is down in Glenn's area in Rockingham, the Regional Economic Development Center. So they're also part of these calls. And then I think North Carolina, Virginia, and Pennsylvania. So it's a small group, but I think it'll be great for us to be able to share best practices. So coming in the new year, we're going to be starting to meet more. So I'll bring some of those best practices to this group too, so that you have the benefit of that. We did refresh a lot of our CEDS web pages, so a lot of things are now reading each other. So when you go to the CEDS committee page, you can get to the actual economic development page and vice versa. And we're looking to keep that as refreshed as possible with minutes and agendas and whatnot. So if you happen to not be able to find my email, you can always go to the CEDS page and you can find it there. We've recruited new members. So Jason's one of our new members this year, as well as Erin, who I don't know if she's still with us or not. And I realized that I put and.
I'm here.
But, yeah,
The
so
Mike-
she's the childcare and baking.
Mike too.
And Mike
That's
Moran.
probably what you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so an outdoor industry. So Mike, I was recognizing you. I just forgot my sentence. And then we did refresh the priority project process. I wouldn't call it a big process, but Taylor and I, and we'll talk about this when we get into the CEDS project, put a lot of work into this spreadsheet. And it was really, I think, rewarding because we got to talk to a lot of folks that maybe we hadn't talked to in either a while or ever about EDA and about CEDS and about what we do for the region. So I found it very rewarding, and I'm hoping that now that it's actually documented that we can continue, this will be a lot easier every year for us to reach out to the community. And then we are working on a dashboard, which we'll talk about as well. We'll pull up the we'll pull up the map that was a link to your email as well, but you can see what that's going to look like going forward as a little taste. EDA has already seen this and they really appreciated that we're doing this, so we're expanding on it in the new year. So it's pretty awesome. All right, so we're going to get into priorities. So what we did was we created a slide for each of the goals and then put the strategies on the next slide. So using your, yeah, there you go. So online, or here, pull up your phone and pull up the camera on your phone and waver it over the QR code, and it will come up, should come up with a little yellow thing that says pollev.com. So you'll pull that up and it will tell you, it will ask for your name. Please don't, you don't need to put your name in. There's a skip option. So feel free to do that. If you are online and would rather use the link, it's there. So pollev.com/TaylorRoy174. You just plug that into your web browser. And same thing, I think it may ask for your name and you can just skip that. It's really not a big deal. We're not keeping track of who's, I would never do that anyways. Keep track of your votes. So with your phone, if you scroll, or yeah, wave over that. How is everybody doing with connecting to that? So you should see goal number 1. Yep. Everybody seeing that? And there's a bunch of options. Online, anybody have any issues with connecting to this? This is what you should see. If I can,
Yeah, it'll look like that. It'll have a goal.
anybody not connect?
Yeah, I'm not quite there yet, but you go ahead. I'll figure it.
Yeah, me too.
What's the whole, what's it telling you?
Oh.
For me, it's just slow to load. So
Oh, okay.
Go ahead. No, I'll get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just have, I'm gonna do the link instead of the code.
You can also text it. So
Mhm.
if you would like to go to a text message and as if you were putting in a phone number, you're going to put this number.
Okay, and then do the.
Yep.
Yeah, and then in the text message, you'll say Taylor Roy 174. You can do it that way too.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't worry about me.
Okay. Well, you can always just tell us
The
what your
more
vote is too.
upstairs,
I can vote on
the
your
more-
behalf. How's that? You can just, do you know sign language?
Do you?
You can just, you do? Oh, okay. Well, no, it's A, B, C, D. That's why I was saying, do you know sign language?
I know A, not A.
B.
Okay, everyone ready?
All right, I think we're good to go. Sarah, you good? Okay. All right, so our goal number one was to support ongoing efforts to collaborate, share resources, build new partnerships, and strengthen existing ones within economic development that balance our community capital and regional needs. So we had 4 strategies associated with this. One was around CEDS committee structure, and I'm excited that we're going to be doing that more in the new year. We started looking at onboarding and other things, but that's really where that is, and how you all work together as well as a team. Valuing assets that make the region unique, provide guidance, resources, and connections for new and existing economic development projects. So that's kind of like the CEDS project process that we're going to go over next. Ensuring balanced investment and support across all community capitals and measure progress over time. We had begun to look at almost like a tracking sheet to measure this progress as well. We're still thinking about what that could look like without being too clunky, but that is what that is. And then a central hub for sharing information and resources. And that's right now our website, but we could also expand on that too. We have dedicated part of our newsletter, every single newsletter every month to an economic development section, but we could always do more. So not that I want to tax myself with more stuff, but at the same time, I do believe very strongly in this. Some EDDs through the NATO peer exchange that I mentioned have newsletters that are specific for the economic development district. So that could be a way to do this as well. And there are more sub strategies actually in the CEDS as well. So if you go to the next slide, oh, there we go. So the goal here, if you, that's what you want to do, yeah. So we're voting on the strategies that you think are important for our team and this committee to focus on for 2025. And it's real.
For some reason, I can't.
So I'm assuming we just hit one of
Yep,
these.
you just,
One of those
there are 4,
boxes.
yep, there'll be 4 boxes.
Click on one and that's it.
Exactly, yep.
All right.
That's your highest votes for how to achieve the.
And
Only one.
when I slide to the next one, yeah.
I mean, they all.
It'll
good.
slide, it'll make, yeah.
So real time, you're
Favorite ice cream
seeing
flavor.
your
Yeah.
votes
I gotta
come
pick
up.
one.
I'm not sure why it's,
I tried to,
you're in a different presentation mode. Can you switch? Yeah. Okay.
I had presenter.
Yeah. There you go.
There.
Awesome. All right, so it's loading again. But it looks like the top
Sorry.
one, so A, maintain an active and supportive CEDS committee was.
I don't know why it's, if I go back, won't mess up.
No. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. That's weird. Well, it looks like A is winning here. Let me see if I vote and skew it too much. But...
Yeah, I don't know why.
Stop share and start sharing again, just to get out of it. There you go. Yeah, no, I don't want to have to. No, share.
And we're not allowed to get the results as participants. Only she can get the results as the.
Well, it should be telling us right here what.
Yeah, it's not loading.
No, I get it. I'm just saying, if we could all see it, then you don't have to post it on the.
Yeah,
Yeah, but we're not seeing it.
yeah, it's not showing.
I don't know why it's so frozen.
Let's go to the next one. I think it was A. It should.
Now, well, let me go to the next one. There.
Go back and see if it.
How do you go to the next one?
Yeah, how do you go to the next one? For us?
She has to activate it. Oh.
Oh, We don't have permission yet.
I guess not.
No, she has to open it. So when we go to the next slide, it's connected through PowerPoint and I'm hoping this isn't that one. Yeah, I know, right?
It's the only technology here.
You're so excited.
Okay.
All right.
Facing robots or what?
We'll check in on that one
The one
after
and only
because
time. Look
it's
at that.
actually in the
Another
Poll
time.
Everywhere software, so we can see that as well. So it looked like A, although I don't know, how did everybody vote? A? All right.
Okay, yeah.
Mhm. All right, number 2. Sorry about that, folks. We actually tested this too. You don't move on to the next question yet. We have to, it'll enable once we, yeah, thanks, Erin. Sorry. So the questions will pop up.
Sorry, I
as
was
we-
unclear with the.
It's okay.
check.
Yeah, you're all good. So this one is around sustaining a culture of honoring and protecting the people, heritage, and landscape of our region. And so the strategies here were looking at improving human systems that strengthen our regional economy through high affordable child care, access to food and healthcare systems, which we believe really promote and support our humans, that are our employees. Explore opportunities to increase wage rates and reduce market leakages within industry sectors. So looking specifically at tourism, hospitality, outdoor recreation, childcare, education, a lot of the industries that are really strong in our region. And then to support the expansion and retention of area traditional industries when possible and help transition to new industries as needed.
All right, let's. No.
Hey, here we are.
Oh.
Why is it?
We're in.
Now,
Let's-
Yes.
So you can all see it, at least on your screen. You can see that is to improve the human systems, explore opportunities to increase, yeah. So
Why is it doing that?
can you go back to Poll Everywhere?
Like, stop sharing? Look at this.
Yep. Yep. Pull it up again. Well, I guess we will.
Why is it doing that?
I don't know, just go back to the presenter view, it's fine. We can see how people are voting. It's at least better,
The
presenter view. Okay. So you can scroll down to see how people are voting, I believe.
I can't really. Like when I scroll, it goes to the next slide. I don't know why it's doing this. Sorry.
There you go.
Yeah, but we can't see how, like, who's voting for C.
One second. Let me just.
Yeah.
I just.
We literally tested this, folks, believe it or not. So that's what's weird. I don't know if it's
Yeah.
Why does it keep going to that view? So sorry.
All
I
right.
never did this before.
Yeah, that doesn't help.
Yeah, all right. I'm so sorry, folks.
All right, so it was hard to tell. How did this one, how did people feel about this one, number 2? It looked like these might have been almost equal, A and B.
B.
Anybody pick C?
I did.
Yeah. Okay, so we might have had it, okay. Okay, I know, there's only 3 on this one. All right, let's go to,
Yeah, it looks like A was chosen the most.
A was chosen the most?
Yeah, I'm trying
Okay.
to look at it on my phone.
Yeah, that's perfect. All right, we'll do it that way. Sorry. Usually that's actually the benefit of Poll Everywhere, as you can see
Yeah.
everybody's. It might be how we're connected. I don't know, but all right. So number 3, our goal 3 for the CEDS is to protect our natural capital of the region while investing in supporting climate migration, adaptation, and regeneration. Hopefully Mike likes this one a lot. And we only had 2 strategies for this. One was looking at business retention, expansion, and transition to new markets. And we did talk about this a little bit with the AMC meeting back in October. So I wouldn't say we're doing it as a CEDS, but the region is looking at this. I believe, both the Northern Forest Center and AMC are good at this. I believe Northern Forest Center is working on adaptation work right now, right, Mike? Is Mike still on? Oh, there he is.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, we're working with a cohort in Androscoggin River Valley, around community forest, climate resiliency, and adaptation.
Great. Perfect. Awesome. Well, hopefully in the new year, we can talk more about that. And then ensuring future development does not detract from the natural capital and systems, which we did talk about as well in October, is, the number of folks in Franconia Notch State Park, for example, is just overuse of some of these is not a goal either. It's really to make sure we're managing this as a whole system and thinking about that it is a natural system and how do we protect that?
Sorry, I forgot I stopped sharing screen. Yeah. Okay, there. And there's only A and B on this one.
Yep. Yeah, so you'll be able to see that on your screen.
Was there much conversation in developing these strategies about also incentivizing climate-based business development as a strategy?
That would, it could be part of the actions that's under the strategy. So we didn't, the actions were hyper specific. So we felt like pulling them back just a little bit, but how we achieve it. That's a great comment though. So can you give an example of one that you think?
Well, I have a two-state jurisdiction, right? So part of what Vermont is trying to do is there are two business accelerator initiatives funded by a series of different entities. One is called Delta Climb, and it's climate-based businesses that are investing in a Vermont footprint, right? That would then be either doing, anything within the green economy sort of network, right? The other one is very specific to sourced materials from either the woodshed or the greater kind of ecological biome footprint, doing a very similar thing, but providing startup capital in a different direction. So when you have the natural assets as part of your backdrop for business, being able to then invest in the ones that are actually utilizing it as a growth mechanism, as part of the development or the product development or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that's great.
Yeah, it seemed to be sort of missing as a strategy. So that's why I was wondering. But we could include it somewhere.
75% of people chose A and 25% for B.
Awesome. All right, so our fourth goal is around support for business development and innovation that supports workforce training, opportunity, livable wage, and work-life balance. So some of the Recast City work is in there, I see. But also some of the great stuff that around the CWE and around the SBA does. I mean, if you go next to the strategies, there are quite a few in here, talking to municipalities, businesses, and organizations, and accessing or expanding resilient infrastructure, which there's funding from USDA, right? For this, I actually talked to Lancaster about that. For broadband, which we're doing in Carroll County, and I believe, is there something in COAS as well now? Okay. Diverse transportation and water and wastewater, supporting and assisting the region with efforts to attract new residents, retain the existing population and our local workforce. So removing that brain drain, which we talked about. Some communities are talking about this. I know the town of Carroll is, in how they feel residents could equal new businesses and vice versa. And so how do we look at housing, for example, is something that we need to look at, but really looking in the skills as well, and talking to unfortunately, Annette Cole couldn't make it from White Mountains Community College, but I know that they've been addressing this as well. And then looking at new partnerships with resource organizations at all levels who can provide that business technical support, and removing barriers to the use of office space for new business space, co-working, makerspace, and innovation centers. So also Recast City. Can you tell I love that program? But there's, I'm sorry?
You want allowed to pick one?
Yeah, we did. I know I should have done that for the ones that were 4. Sorry. Well, next time. I mean, it doesn't mean that we wouldn't do some of these other ones, so that's a good thing. But that's a good question. We'll give you a minute to. How are we voting? Everybody good online?
Yeah, they're still coming in. Hmm.
How'd we do?
Right now it looks like 18% for A, or 17% for A, 42% for B, 25% for C. Now it's 29% for C. Now it's 31.
I see how you're voting.
Okay, now B and C are equal at 36%.
Awesome.
All right.
So B and C?
Yeah, it looks like B and C
Okay.
tied.
Great. Awesome.
Okay.
All right. Our goal 5 is focused on looking at missing skills, training, and education systems. Again, White Mountains Community College and the White Mountains Regional High School. Great partners of ours. We actually did a webinar with the White Mountains Regional School back in the brain drain discussion. So looking at how these help us, and actually I believe on one of our projects there is a discussion around a specific network that the White Mountains Regional School is proposing for this. So good nexus, just saying. So we just had the one strategy for this, so I guess we didn't really probably need to put this up there, but that's okay. But hopefully you'll choose it all, or you'll all choose it, but supporting our school programming and workforce development programs and any other innovative programs for that matter, to really make sure that our young adults stay and that anybody who needs the training to stay in this region receives that.
Yeah.
So that one should get 100%, right?
Yeah.
All right, so moving on to 6.
Yeah, we'll move on to the next one.
Understanding income and equity disparities in the region, creating plans for an inclusive environment with access for everyone and measure progress over time. And we had 3 different strategies for this as well. Again, looking at education and training programs in distress markets. And we can actually measure that through EDA. They have a tool that can help us do that. I mean, we know our region very well too, but they can help us with that a little bit more, or even sub-markets for that matter. It doesn't have to be an entire community. And then looking at equitable access to basic needs. We're talking about, and I don't think this is a secret necessarily, but creating a community land trust in this region around housing and working with a head. So this is one that, and I'm sitting on that committee right now to talk about what that could look like. There's not many in the United States right now, but it is a very sustainable model to look at housing between 30 and 99 years to have, opportunities for home ownership at an affordable rate. So that could fit into this too. And then reducing barriers and providing support to marginalized populations to have equitable access to economic development. So again, partnering with organizations like SBA and CWE to do this. All right. We can see the top one changing at least. We know that it is working. It's just looking to see it working.
I don't know. It must be like the settings. Sometimes it depends on like what I plug into. Like it might be like me plugging into the TV.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. But our computers don't allow us to do that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How are we doing?
It's looking like B is the most popular. And then A and then C.
Cool.
That may change in a minute.
Now that people are waiting for the results.
Yeah. Oh yeah, see now A and C are tied. Yeah, it looks like B is the most popular at 47%.
Awesome. All right, 3 more goals.
2 more.
Oh, 2 more. study and learn from innovative models around the country and pilot them in the region. So we're doing this overall goal right now, awesome, through the NATO CEDS peer exchange, but there are several other strategies that we had for this. Oh, I guess there was only one. I apologize. So, so it's really about looking at our neighbors, and that's great to have USDA at the table all the time. So thanks to Sarah for staying part of this network. But you know, and the NATO, but others too. I mean, I'm sure SBA has some networks we can tap into. You know, APA as an organization has lots of really cool stuff. And I don't know if you're still a member. I know I am, and I know you are, right? Oh, okay. So never mind.
APA? Yeah.
Yeah. Always a great organization for us to tap into because they have a rural division, which is nice because it recognizes that, you know, we have a unique situation up here. So we'll keep doing that. All right. And I don't know if is there a network of RDCs?
There is.
Yeah.
Is there? Okay. That's cool. So we'll learn from you too.
Well, there's a network of RDCs and RPCs.
I knew RPCs, but I didn't know RDCs.
There is.
Okay. Sweet.
Yeah, it's probably not as active as RPC ones. It used to be very active.
Yeah, the RPC one's very
over
active.
the years, it has become like.
What's it called?
The New Hampshire Alliance of Regional Development Corporations, NHARDC.
Oh, nice.
Okay. Great, thank you.
There used to be all kinds of meetings, activities, get-togethers, various and sundry.
But each RDC is very active.
Oh, yes, it's just that the association.
The association itself may be.
Where they would collaborate and get together on things, that really doesn't have a budget anymore.
It did last year, but.
Did.
Who knew?
Oh, well.
The RPCs.
I'm talking about on an ongoing regular basis. I mean, we used to meet quarterly. We'd move it around the state. We had, you know, it was pretty active. Oh, yes, very.
Oh. Learn something new every day. All right. So this was our new goal 8 to match the new industry supplement that we created. So looking at retaining and attracting manufacturing and other skilled trades that provide the good jobs, year-round employment, livable wages, and advancement opportunities. And we had 3 strategies for this. Looking at, again, I know it's a common theme, but the next generation workforce and, you know, eliminate or at least stymieing the brain drain somehow, keeping that diversification of ages in our region, which is super necessary for vibrant communities. And then increasing technology knowledge base for now and future, and then encouraging monitoring of potentially available industry properties. And this is something that some regions do right now. It's called LoopNet. I'm sure you are familiar with LoopNet, and maybe Steve too. It is a commitment, but it's a nice commitment. It really is a lot of fun, and there's a tool out there that you can use that helps with that. I'm totally forgetting the name that LoopNet, CoStar, right? Yeah, but it is a commitment. And it's a financial commitment too, but it's nice because then you can see all in one big format what's available, and it helps, I'm sure, with business attraction.
And that's a very crucial issue
in
the North Country.
Yeah,
and there are no industrial or commercial buildings available.
Right.
As opposed to the southern part of the state.
Yeah.
Dozens and dozens of them.
That's crazy.
So it's.
Yeah.
Is that a potential, so the land bank you mentioned, is that intended to be residential only, or is that also expected to maybe have an industrial?
The land
side of
trust?
it? Yeah, the land
Yeah, it's just housing, single family. Yeah. I know, I would love to do a more commercial one. That would be awesome.
Yeah, like
Maybe
sometimes these, you know, in a larger city, right, the land banks or land trusts that might be able to do sort of industrial.
Yeah.
In my workforce housing webinar, if you attended, there was a good example of like this community that did like the bottom floor is like retail commercial space. So there's like food stores and things like that. And then above there's like 3 or 4 stories of housing, which is really cool because you can kind of just go downstairs to grab a bite to eat. And I think even one of the levels might have been like office spaces. which was really cool too. So multi-use space.
Definitely. All right, how do we vote on this one?
A with 67%.
Awesome. All right.
And that's the end of the slideshow for me.
So what Taylor and I are gonna do with this is to take a look at the answers, take a look at the actions that were associated with these. Again, there were numerous actions. And pull together a strategy, a work plan, I should call it, for our work in 2025, which will inform maybe another webinar series, education at these CEDS, opportunities at these CEDS meetings, opportunities for us to collaborate, new partners, strengthening existing partnerships. I know I've been talking to Whimsy recently about bringing someone back on the board, and they're looking amongst themselves because, you know, they don't have that many staff, but they are interested in re-engaging, and that would be that young generation that we're talking about. So who are we missing at the table? What can we be doing to really strengthen what you think is important? You know, what do those actions look like? So we'll present that at the February meeting for you to review. Any questions or thoughts on that besides sorry that the poll everywhere? It must be this thing.
Yeah, I
can
think
only
so
imagine. This thing caused problems for me when I used it in the office too, so I didn't realize we were bringing it, but. All right, well, thank you for engaging in that. It usually is a lot of fun to see the results coming in, but please feel free to use that tool. It's super free. It's great because you can use it on your phone and on for a virtual tool too. All right, so we're going to then now switch gears to the CEDS priority list, and you should have a list in front of, oh, you printed yours out, that's you, Joe. Some of you, if you can share, they're big, so, we just wanted to reduce the amount of trees that we're, even though we use recycled paper at NCC. So just a quick reminder of this process. So in early October, maybe late September, I think it was, we put out a call to all of our partners. You probably received lots of emails from me, and apologies if you weren't the right person, but we really want it every year. We want to make sure that the list of projects of either potential, like, you know, that it's moving forward types of projects or proposed things that need to happen in the region are in front of us, that we know what's going on. And this allows us to, as a committee, sign a letter of support, provide some sort of letter, maybe even commitment, but letter of support at the very least, for federal, state, and local applications, and for New Hampshire Charitable and other folks. So it really strengthens the process to show that we reviewed this project. We see that it is consistent with our strategy that we've laid out for 5 years, that we just reviewed the goals for. And that we think it's really, it helps to improve our economy in the North Country. So we received, was it 16 projects? I think it's 16. Sorry, I didn't label the
I think it
number
was
of
a little
projects.
less.
Well, it's
Maybe, I don't
16-ish, 17 projects. Some of them are newer. We actually, and I'll explain why, were added after the original outreach. But Taylor and I looked at this in a variety of different ways, and you have a criteria sheet in front of you as well that we're gonna go over. But what we first started to do was look at all the industries that were represented, and that'll be your second column, so B, if you will. It says industry. And what we did was use the industry codes from NAICS. So these are actually federally designated or census designated codes or industries. We did not make up the names. Some of them are long, so I just wanted to make sure you knew that. And we did this because this is how this is what we assessed in the CEDS as well. So we know what the top 5 industries are, or top 10, or whatever number you want to use, but we know what those industries are. So we started with that because we felt like that was a good way to see what is overrepresented potentially in this right now, like with these proposed projects, what isn't represented, and maybe what's kind of in the middle. So that was the first thing we looked at. The second thing we looked at was geography. And we noticed some holes in the region. Plymouth, like southern part of the region, and then we had reached out to Jason, we reached out to Upper Valley, Lake Sunapee Regional Planning Commission, who's our other partner on this. They're in the Economic Development District. And that's where Taylor and I started to see, well, who could we reach out to ask for any potential projects that could fill these gaps, both in industry and in region, or sorry, geography. So we were able to fill some of those holes. So the WAGs, I think it's called, is now on this list. I think it's second to last on this list. Sorry, I should
I think it's last. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, can I look at here? So WAGs, or WAG, I guess is called, the West Lebanon and Hanover Greenway, which Jason had asked me about months ago, and I think it's a really cool project to connect Lebanon and Hanover through a multi-use trail. The second to last one, which apologies, I meant to put in the project name, this is developing a welcome center in Littleton. Right now, there are no public restrooms in Littleton, and they get between 19 and 25,000 people descending upon the town for various events over the years, and there's no place for people to help themselves. And that, not just that, but it's a major tourist destination now, so having a welcoming center, having a chamber, place to do that, and then maybe some other things. So that's the idea there. It's not completely built out yet, but it was an idea that the chamber brought to us and has already been vetted with the town manager, by the way, so.
Where is this?
They are proposing that it be the barn, along the river, next to the senior center on the, Amanuset. It's called the old senior center barn, I think, it's red, but that's to TBD. So that would be what this is kind of, planning and knowing that we need a welcome center, where could it be? And then the other project is, the Grafton Center Meeting House. So all those three projects came out of Taylor and I's research. And I think in addition to adding some projects, it also, again, raised exposure to this process. I know White Mountains Community College is thinking about adding a project maybe in the new year when they can kind of vet it a little bit more. And I'm trying to think if there's one more. Oh, then Michelle had suggested that I talk with Anne. Because again, we're kind of lacking in the Plymouth area, and I'd love to talk with you too, Joseph, but we're lacking in the Plymouth area. I should celebrate that June Hammond Rowan has mentioned that their project, which was an EDA project supported by this committee for stormwater improvements and major stuff downtown. I mean, all of this, right, Joseph?
Yeah.
Was the result of us supporting a project. So, and that's wrapped up now. So yay, completed project. But that's the kind of stuff that we want to raise the bar. 2 projects came on from actually 3 projects from Lancaster.
A bunch from Lancaster. Yeah, there's one. There's a Colonel Town Players. They wanna redo their lighting and their theater, which is outdated.
And then 3 submitted just by the town of Lancaster as well. One for Healthy North Country, which is on the second page. One for traffic calming in support of down Main Street, and then one around an agricultural, looking at agricultural land and making sure that we're not subdividing it and making housing. So how do we support those folks who want to stay in agricultural business? So what does that model look like? So I wanted to present this first. It's a lot. Sorry.
Yeah, just sort of made a comment to me, and I think it's important that maybe we address that. The stuff that ends up on this list is not necessarily stuff that would be funded by EDA.
Correct.
Yes. They could be a component of the funding.
Correct.
And the priority project list is a requirement of the CEDS work that we do.
It is.
But there could be a variety of sources of funding for the projects.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So for example, and maybe you want to talk about the Whitefields library.
Yeah, so the Whitefield Library is doing a renovation and expansion right now. So part of their funding is currently coming from a CCIP. So it's a community center investment program out of CDBG. So they have about $900,000, so like $1 million into that project. But then now they need additional funding to do like a 2-story expansion. And so now they're looking at
I think they've come to us.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're looking at different sources of funding to then further help their project along. I think it was, why can't I remember? Was it CDFA money? I think they're looking at CDFA money too.
Well, the CCIP, Community Center Investment Program, is CDFA.
Yeah.
It's ARPA money that they got, and they had to get it out really fast.
That's right, yeah.
And so it went out, and they had, I forget, 20 something million dollars. So a lot of projects got funded, but it was a really fast process. And now a lot of them are having to look for additional.
Exactly,
funding to fill
because
gaps.
right, because it's like currently like the environmental assessment just got done, and there's still like And technically, like the CCIP money will be ending, but they're like, we want to continue this project. We can't just like stop building the library. So yeah, they are looking for additional funding.
So great point. Yeah, I think at any project like I'll use the Plymouth one again. There were several different sources of funding. I think EPA also gave funding. So we're seeing this as one of many, but it is a requirement for any EDA funding to get a letter of support from this group. So what Taylor and I were thinking about when we looked this over and then we created the project criteria. I just want to make sure everybody has a copy of this. It's a single page.
Yeah, behind it, it's behind the green.
Is not to vote on this today, because we do have some folks like our friends at Upper Valley who could not make it, unfortunately, because there are holiday parties today, and that's very important.
Oh.
I know, well, yeah, I mean, thankfully, Steve and Vito are here for this, but we thought it was also a little confusing on how to do this, because there obviously are many projects. And we wanted to talk this through with you all first. So one thought would be that giving you some time to review this with a potential project criteria sheet. So we'll go through these. If you have questions, you can answer those. We've talked to most of these people. We talked with, and it looks like both Robin and, did Robin and?
No, she did.
Yep, they're here. Oh, good. So Robin and Jess are still there. So if we had questions for them, for example, you could ask those, but and then to give some feedback on how we're rating these. Like we were thinking it could be a point system. And using these top three, one is, does it benefit communities outside of the town or city where it's located, which is important because this is EDA funding. Usually they're looking for this to have a wider net, if you will, cast a wider net. And then the top main goals, these are, I know there's 5 here and we had 8, but these are like the top ones that we consider that manage our work. They're kind of buckets, if you will. So goals is kind of I should call it buckets. But does it fit into workforce housing workforce and talent? Is it part of our hard infrastructure or soft infrastructure? And each of those has been defined. And then the last one is around project readiness. What is it really looking for? Do they have these things? And they'll get points. The proposal would be that they'd get points for these because it shows how ready they are to actually move forward. It doesn't mean that we couldn't pick these if they didn't score high, if you will, but it just shows us which projects, because this is a lot of projects. It's in addition to probably an additional 10 that are already on the list that are ongoing. Things like Berlin's doing some work on 110, or, well, until recently, the Plymouth project. LIDC, the Littleton Industrial Development Park, has some work. The Riverfront project in Littleton, there's a lot of stuff. So this would add to that list. Yeah.
Can you say a little bit about why they're all weighted equally?
This is a proposal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we could weigh them separately if you'd like.
I think that'd be good, because the way this is, like, a letter of support would weigh the same as the entire question number 1, right?
Yeah.
If everything's a point, and you would, I don't know, I guess
Right, or
Yeah.
site control, which is really important when it comes to readiness.
Sure.
Maybe
Yeah.
weighed a little bit differently.
So it would probably maybe be better to have more points.
Okay.
So that we could play with the weighting, like
Exactly.
100 points or 50 points or something.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Okay.
I also, and correct me if I'm wrong, or just remind me, is there a number of priority projects that EDA is looking for in the sense?
Nope.
No.
Yeah, I
So
mean, I've
the
worked with
only
regions that there's
reason-
like 100 projects.
Yeah, that, as have I.
Yeah.
So the only reason that we are going through this is for our own support as a network to be able to prioritize and bring resources
Correct.
to the ones that feel the
Yep.
highest.
Yeah, so
one
some
other-
projects may
one
not
other
make the
quick-
list, but that like I mentioned the Lancaster ones when you and I had that call a couple weeks ago, like they may not, I mean, I'm hoping they all make the list, but like there's an infrastructure project on there and it makes sense, but does this committee weigh heavily on it?
Yeah,
should it
yeah,
be on the
no,
list?
I get it.
Yeah.
One other quick question, or just a consideration, some of the other CEDS regions that we sit in on and are a part of actually invite the EDA rep to the meetings.
She's always invited.
She's always invited, and she hasn't come yet?
I'm trying to
We
remember,
can
she
lean
came
on
in
her
June,
a
I
little
think.
bit.
A while back, she
She's,
was.
Yeah.
she's good about it. though.
Okay,
That's
good.
a rule, yeah.
Good, I was just
Okay.
thinking it is always so, when you go through the list, with the EDA rep in the room,
Yeah.
they are often like, that one's not gonna work for us, that one's not gonna work.
Right.
And it's just so helpful to kind of
That's
hear from their perspective what fits and what doesn't fit, because then
Yeah.
other federal agencies can grab the others off the list and kind of tackle.
That's a
So,
great point.
yeah,
You know,
they
in years,
sometimes are really helpful and.
in
Yeah.
years past, under different EDA reps, we had,
Rita?
well, there was Rita,
Uh-huh.
Alan Brigham.
Alan.
Yeah, Alan.
There was, in those two cases, as an example, we had much more regular participation
Yeah.
at meetings.
That's true.
Yeah,
They were-
Catherine
they were
showed us
really-
her
they were
list
really
of
much
all
more
of her
engaged.
CEDS
Yeah,
regions, and she's
yeah.
got a lot, like Vermont's got 4 new ones applying or something like that, so
Oh,
she's,
interesting.
her time is pretty thin, but
Yeah,
particularly
she's
when we
nice
get
days.
to this time of year, it might be really good to say,
Yeah, sure.
could you
That's
please?
a good point.
Which is
Yeah.
why I am also so you bring up a good point, and why I didn't want to rush this. I think
Yeah.
that it could be good for us to have a chance for, especially for those who aren't
Really
here,
good,
but
yeah.
also for you all to hear it from us first, because I know this can be somewhat of a gaunt, like, which is, I don't need to keep using you as a case in point, but it's confusing what our region is versus the economic development region, like us as North Country, because like this project is actually applicable in this case, but it wouldn't be for North Country Council. So there's that confusion, which I hate, but it is what it is. So it's almost nice hearing it from the horse's mouth and asking questions and then being able to look at it again. And I did want your feedback on the criteria.
Yeah.
We had a project submission form that was like 4 pages long before, which I think was a little bit much. Like we barely had some folks fill out the one that we shortened. So I merged this, like I didn't want to get rid of those things. So that's where the goals came from. That's where the project readiness piece and, other pieces. So I kind of am merging our processes so that we're not getting rid of all the great work you've done in the past, but that it's now part of almost your assessment. So I love the weighting idea. We can definitely do that. And what about
for those of us who score things all the time, having these questions be binary is gonna be hard. So I think if you gave everybody 5 points on all of these, you could score all of them on a 1 to 5.
on a 1 to 5?
Yeah,
Okay.
because the hard infrastructure, the project may only aid municipalities, but not really some of the other entities in that, so you'd give it a 2 rather than a 5.
Oh, okay,
You see what I'm
alright,
saying?
yeah.
And then
Okay.
your total could be 5, 10, 15, 20, so your
Yeah.
total points could be up to X.
Yep.
And then you get scores of 70 or 60 or 40, depending on what people think.
Sure,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool.
Because these are very complex things.
I know.
Safety, diversity, desirable, high quality, like those are a lot of qualitative words that we probably have to.
The more complicated this is, the more training that whoever's filling it out is gonna need to understand what terminology is and complex and things like that
Good
too,
point.
right? So that we're consistent
Yeah,
in the scoring.
which is why I
It's
wanted
different.
to use a better, something that gave you an example of what we're
Right,
talking
right,
about. Like if I said
right.
workforce and talent, I don't know if that's fair. So like,
So maybe
people need to
maybe
know
my
that.
point is a little bit more like, that's something for us to consider, like what kind of training or getting on the same page do we need so that we're all on the same page about what human systems, right? Like, cause somebody from one background is gonna read that different than somebody from another context, and that could impact some of the fairness of the scoring. So like any kind of a rubric model, you gotta make sure everybody's on the same page around it.
Yeah.
Works great if it's one person doing it, but if there's multiple.
Yeah.
So we would wanna bake that in potentially to the process. It's just like some kind of, I don't know, TA for us around, with examples and things.
I've seen funders do like cheat sheets, like if it's hitting 2 out of the 4 things you list, like it's aiding municipalities and businesses, but not doing other things like diverse transportation options, you get 2 out of 5, or, and you give like examples so people can actually understand how it relate, how they would score this example.
Yeah, like a rubric, basically. Yeah, full on.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that. I'm sure I've taken one, but I've never designed one, so.
Well, you've got at least 3 of us in the room, 4
Yeah.
of us in the room.
Cool.
Rate projects. all
Yeah,
the
cause it would
time.
be like,
Smaller
like
group,
meets
like, so they're all
goals,
kind of like-
yeah,
Yeah.
meets some of the goals.
75% of the goals.
Yeah,
Science, yeah.
yeah,
Meets all
college
goals.
days,
Yeah.
classic,
There you go.
classic
There you go.
rubric.
There you go.
Then we'll take from our technical assistance experts.
Just feed it in the chat GPT.
There you go. Just make sure the screen doesn't freeze.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't have broadband access.
Okay, that helps a lot. So we'll pull this together a little differently and then send that out. And the idea would be that you would have this in front of you so that you can, because the project description or name doesn't always say exactly what it is, like Littleton Welcome Center. What are the details? Some of them, like I said, we don't have as much detail on them as you may want because they're still very much an infancy project, but I wouldn't rate that lower, I hope, but at the same time, I understand. So keep in mind, we're not asking for funding for these. I know that was a confusion for some folks. They thought this was actually an application for funding and it's not. This is only for us to, being able to complete a project, a letter of support, but also to post this amongst other things on, and can you pull up the map? Sorry.
Nice to meet everyone.
Yeah. It would be in that
Happy
email.
holidays.
In my email.
Be in
from-
touch. Absolutely.
Randy will
Nice
tell
to see
you
you again.
everything.
Nice meeting you.
She'll update for everything.
That's great. Actually, spent some time.
That'd be
in
great.
the region.
Yeah. And fingers crossed that we go to work on Monday for the federal government.
Oh, yeah.
I know, how many federal, I feel like whenever I look at the sign-in sheet, there's a bunch of yeses.
So, Angela, I want to walk back what I just said, given the point you just made about how this is we're not approving.
Yeah.
Anything. So I just want to put a little asterisk about what I just said, let's make sure we're right size, don't go building this whole huge thing. If
Yeah.
it's just
I was gonna blend.
I kind of forgot about, that's a good point you made. It's, I think, a check on what we were just saying about all that extra effort.
I appreciate that.
We're not making
Thank
funding
you.
decisions.
Yeah, right. And it's important to remember that.
I
So
appreciate that.
whatever's right size so that we can get that job done, the approval or not, and still be consistent would be the goal, not some elaborate thing.
Yeah, I also don't want this to, we do have some folks that weren't able to make it today, so. But I do want to quickly share just what the ultimate, where we want this to also live, in addition to you all knowing about these projects. There we go. So our GIS experts put this together, and the idea was to visually also represent what is going on with these projects or the potential projects. But as I mentioned, and why can't I find the, I'm gonna be able to zoom in and it's not letting me zoom in. Yeah, that's really weird. Where did the zoom button go? All right.
Go like this, can you pinch like this?
Yeah, thank you. I keep forgetting my computer at home doesn't do that. So the idea here would be to have both the completed projects, which you do have actually on here right now, if you haven't had a chance to look at this. So these black ones are things that have been completed. So we can celebrate all the things that you did approve or support in the past and that have been completed in the region, and see them geographically as well as the type of project. And then anything in color right now are all the proposed projects. So if you did not vote on them or they don't score high, or we decide that they don't, they may not apply for EDA funding, then we'll remove them. But for now, you can see just how we really wanted to make sure they were geographically distributed. So for example, you're not seeing anything in the northern part of the country or region. Of course, this happens right when I start talking. And then, we're missing some projects in the southern part as well. So they seem to be clustered around here. I don't know why that is. It's really funny. But the idea would be you could click on this and learn a little bit more about the project. So there'll be full-on descriptions, the partners, et cetera. And so that folks like Sarah, she could actually visit this, or Miguel or anybody or RDCs could look at this and say, well, we need to support that, or even New Hampshire Charitable Foundation, we should support that, and we have some extra funding. So that's why we built this tool, so you can see this as well, and it is in that email I sent on Friday. So if you wanted to take a look at that,
will that be accessible from the page on the website?
It is right now, but not with this on it. We didn't want to publicly really send this out.
No.
Yes, that's the idea. Exactly. It is there right now. I feel like it's there right now. We might have taken it down, but at any rate, but yeah, we want this to be a visual tool. Yeah, so if EDA needed it for any minute, they could just go to our website and that's right there. Yeah.
And are there any, what are the consequences? Why wouldn't a project make the list? Just that they don't fit into the strategies we just talked about.
Yeah, readiness, like if it's just too not baked yet, and we don't really see potential in it moving forward. After looking at some of these goals, you're like, well, that's a stretch that it fits into any of these, or it's, scoring low. That it really is just for one community. Again, EDA and many of the other, I would say any partner really at this table and state partners would want to see that there's some benefit that other communities would be feeling from this, whether, it's improvements into a transportation corridor or, water and sewer in Lancaster, for example, would benefit the communities around them as well. Because it would build business, et cetera. So thank you for coming. So yeah, it's a great question. I don't know that any won't, but you never know. We just find that it's too minuscule to make it to an EDA cut sheet. I think that after reading them, it might make more sense. But that's where I could see some projects not making the list. But like that's really up to the group too. In the past, I've seen all projects move forward in regions. So if you look at this and say, I don't think we need to vote, let's just move them all forward. Like that's fine too. In the Stratford region, they don't vote. They just put them all on there. So
one thing that we used to do, is that if a project was deemed worthy of being on the list for whatever criteria we had, the list was separated by ones that were high priority, middle priority,
yep.
And then sort of in the still baking stages. So that at the top of the list were the things that, they had site control, they had a lot of stuff ready to go, had their funding sources identified. And so it was an easy way to sort of keep track of the hot ones.
Yeah.
So nothing got kicked off the list.
Yeah.
But at least it was sort of organized in a way that, depending on how well they were doing.
And I'd leave it up to the committee if we want to do that. I'm not inclined to want to kick anything off, but I also I want to give people the ability to, I don't know, there's kind of two parts of me fighting about that. Like give people some say, and obviously I would always give you a say, but how, like, is it that we would remove something, or is it that it would more be prioritized, like you said, or even high, medium, low, or ready, sort of ready, not ready?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's helpful, just in this, if we, even a modified rubric would help with that. Like, I mean, it seems like if it does not put on the list, it means we just feel like it's really not a good fit for what this committee is sort of mission is. Like, that's to me the thing that would sort of just like, it just really doesn't really seem to fit.
Sure.
But otherwise, it's just an allocation of resources, your time, effort. And so in that sense, the like prioritization, because a letter, like that's really helpful for some of these that aren't as far along.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want to like exclude them from the list, necessarily if it, is within the mission sort of what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if we know it's pointless to move it to EDA if they're not really ready for that. And I don't know a lot about the, but it's like, I think that could be helpful as far as allocation of time and resources.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Jason. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. Any other thoughts on the line? I see Mike is still here. Steve, Robin, any other thoughts? I don't want to leave you guys out.
The only thing I'll chime in on, Angela, is the Northern Forest Center's Gorham Wayfinding project has rapidly progressed to a priority project for us. We've got buy-in from the town manager and select board, as well as the destination management committee, and so we're going to be moving forward in 25 to make that happen. So if that can be updated to represent that on the spreadsheet, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah. Oh, congrats! That's awesome. That's the Gorham one. Okay. If you could send me anything that you think it should say, I just want to make sure I'm consistent with that, and maybe just like a sentence, Mike.
Sure. Yep.
Okay, great.
I was gonna say, I'll have it in the minutes too.
That's true.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks. Steve, Robin, anybody else?
The only other thing I would add is that the Northern Border Regional Commission funded projects should be announced in early January, so that may change some things there as well.
Good point. Yeah, and I think.
Oh yeah,
Whitefield,
that was
NBRC.
the acronym. Yeah, they're getting NBRC funding
Yeah,
for the
that's what I
Whitefield project, or they're looking at it. They're trying
Yeah,
to get
great
it,
point,
so.
Steve. Yeah, so we
Too
may,
many acronyms.
I mean, look, throughout January, we'd be updating that tool that I showed you just a couple minutes ago. And, putting other sources of funding and celebrating the ones that did get funding to support at least part of the work that they're working on. So great point. Forgot about those. All right, any other feedback?
This is Robin.
Oh, hey, Robin, sorry.
I just had a question for everyone, because Lancaster's going through this. I just wanted to know if anyone has heard about, well, the lead service line replacement that EPA is mandating, and if communities are basically putting brakes on projects because of that required funding. I'll give you an example. Lancaster has roughly 1,300 connections that have to be replaced at it's going to cost about $18 million. So that has to be gross appropriated. And then if you hop in on the drinking water funding for this within the next year or two, that money will have a 71% principal forgiveness. But if you're not ready for that, then you are borrowing it in its entirety. So I'm just, I guess I'm just giving you notice of a very cautionary issue for everyone throughout the state.
Well, anyone who has a municipal water system.
Right, correct.
And to be honest, a good part of our state does not have that.
Yeah.
But a lot of communities do.
I know that the Plymouth Village Water and Sewer District here in Plymouth, they are not under the town's auspices. They're their own independent village district, so I don't want to say anything on their behalf, but they have been working very proactively on this, and they did get bipartisan infrastructure law funding to support lead service line replacement. And I don't know if this is something that you've explored, Robin, and it's not my area per se, but is there any way that New Hampshire DES can be of assistance with the Clean Water State Revolving Fund to help with offsetting some of those costs? They have, in the Drinking Water Bureau, I know the programs, a lot of their programs that were ARPA funded are coming to a close, but I don't know if there's some other things that will come in to maybe fill some of those gaps. I mean, the people at the Drinking Water and Clean Water are really.
That's the money that has the principal forgiveness. So it's through their state revolving fund. So anyway, just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they were, and I guess I'm not sure if the Water and Sewer District and their projects was able to use that in conjunction with this bipartisan infrastructure law funding to help sort of fill those gaps. I don't know. I just, they're in their own district, so I don't know all the machinations of how they're funding that project, but you may want to check out, their lead service line replacement project and see if they have any, if there's anything in there that might be helpful.
Yeah.
Of course, the other
All right,
issue.
thank you.
Sorry, the other issue we're facing is that come January, likelihood any of that money from the bipartisan infrastructure bill is not going to be available. So, because that's likely to all go away, or a good part of it. Anyway.
All right, so expect in the new year, you'll get this survey and the spreadsheet again. We'll give you explicit direction on how to do that. I know we are running over, so is there anything that people want to share about what they're doing right now?
Quickly?
Yeah.
Wearing my CEDC board hat, we just received acceptance of an offer for a new executive director.
Nice.
And the announcement hasn't gone out, and I don't know that the person has turned in their notice to leave their current job, so I
So
don't want.
it's a secret.
So no names.
But it's but it's good.
But it's
That's
very
great
good.
news, yeah.
It's an individual who will be starting with us, I believe, on January 21, because they had to give 30 days notice with the current job, so.
I'll leave that out of the minutes.
Well, no.
No, you can,
The-
but just not the name.
Just-
We're not.
And I'm not telling you the names.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
You don't have that. But-
So we have to guess.
But you're certainly welcome to let people know about it.
So February will be their start? Is that?
January.
Is that, oh, January will be. start.
January 21.
Okay, oh, great. Excellent. Well,
I just want to share that I was able to help Dartmouth Health secure a $1.26 million workforce opportunity for rural communities grant. And it'll have particular benefits to any DH affiliates up in the North Country. It's a Justice 40 project, so has to have a lot of focus on impoverished rural communities. So
Awesome. Congrats.
I can say for Plymouth, I mean, not in this, plan or under this auspices really, we've approached it much more as a transportation project, but through the 10-year plan, transportation project, the DOT 10-year plan, we were able to get a project, hopefully that's advancing. It was certainly listed as the top regional priority project out of Lakes Region, which is our RPC. We're very hopeful that will move forward through the GASSET hearings and into the final plan to sort of redefine the northern gateway to downtown Plymouth. You might be familiar with the area just north of here around the Armory. There's kind of a hump in the road that curves and has a driveway to Plymouth State University cogen plant, large student parking area, has a National Guard armory with heavy trucks. And then it also, just on the other end, is the Common Man Inn and Spa and the access from 93. So realigning that road, correcting some of those really, really terrible sight lines that are hazardous to the National Guard vehicles, things like that, but also just extending pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure from Main Street further north, all the way across the old Green Bridge, which really, one of our, points of attack for the project was from an economic development perspective, folks getting off exit 26 or Tenny Mountain Highway, coming into downtown Plymouth. That's really redefining how their first impression of coming into the village is, with a more of a safe access, but also more of a village feel with those pedestrian and bicycle amenities. So we're hopeful that will keep moving forward, and hopefully that will get signed into the plan.
Awesome.
10-year plan.
That would be cool.
Nice. Yeah, it is kind of scary pulling out of that student parking lot from experience.
Yes. I've done it too. Any other updates or share?
I'll just say, with the change in administration, Sarah will no longer be with RD as of mid-January. So she's a political appointee. So her tenure is coming to an end, and Richard, who is here today, or myself, I'm New Hampshire based, so we'll be able to answer any questions in her absence in the interim until we get a new state director. And also our community facilities and water and environmental programs, we're encouraging applications by January 17th for nonprofits and municipalities. That's really the big thing happening at RD.
So Sarah won't carry over until they appoint somebody else? Or?
No, there's usually a 6 months to a year has been the norm. We do have a deputy director who will be the acting state director, but as far as kind of like getting out in communities, he's going to be leaning on program directors and Richard.
Right. Oh, it's hard to lose good people. All right.
On that note.
Yeah,
on that note.
We thank her for all her service. So I wish she was here for us to tell her that. She's awesome. Well, thank you all. I apologize for we just go over, but it's really good. The 2025 schedule, hopefully everybody sees that in there. I know sometimes they don't always make it, but let me know if it's not showing up on your calendar. Should start with February 22nd. if you do not see it, let me know, but I'm pretty sure when we agreed on it,
It says 27.
oh, sorry. This is why I should wear my glasses. That looked like a 2 to me. 27.
Is it okay?
It is, yeah, I had actually double checked to make sure, but yeah, 27th of February is the Thursday. No location yet, but I think we're due back in like the Littleton area, but or maybe even Conway, I don't know, we'll figure it out, but TBD. In the meantime, have a happy holiday or holidays, and it was great to see everyone virtually and in person. And thanks to GRDC for hosting us, and thanks for coming, Joseph. It was nice to have you as Plymouth's representative here.
Yeah, great to have you guys here. You're welcome back to Plymouth anytime.
Thank you.
Right.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.